ANC supporters in the eThekwini region on Monday disrupted the council meeting at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. The council was expected to elect the chief whip, a mayor and deputy mayor after electing the speaker of the council. For a reaction on this, I'm joined by Nicole Graham, the DA's eThekwini Mayoral Candidate. Ms. Graham, thank you for your time today. So what exactly transpired yesterday?
Good afternoon. We were able yesterday to meet as a council for our inaugural meeting. The council elected a speaker, which was won by the ANC. And when it became clear that for the other positions the numbers were not in the ANC's favour, the meeting was routinely delayed by the ANC. First of all, they called a lunch break. The speaker called a lunch break, despite the wishes of the majority of the councillors present to continue. And then when they came back, it was clear that they were going to do everything possible to delay the meeting. The power then went off, and we've been reliably informed that it was intentional. And the tent was stormed by a group of women and a few young men who kicked over tables and tried to intimidate councillors and just behaved appallingly, at which point the ANC got up and left. They then used the excuse of having no power to be able to call the meeting off. But it was clear the ANC were raising frivolous points of order. They did not want that meeting to go ahead because they are really worried about what's going to happen in eThekwini. The meeting is now taking place tomorrow. It's been called for tomorrow. And tomorrow we need to elect a mayor, a deputy mayor, and a chief whip.
You say the ANC was worried and concerned. Do you believe they have reason to be?
I do think they have reason to be. Look, on the speaker vote, there were 3 candidates and one political party, the IFP, did not participate, which allowed the ANC to win a majority. And the dynamics then changed throughout the day. And I think that if all opposition parties vote together, the ANC are outnumbered, in quite a serious way. And I think that there is a high likelihood that that's going to happen. And I think that the ANC know that. That's why they were raising points of order about COVID and the tent and wind and all kinds of silly things instead of getting on with the votes. They would have elected a mayor yesterday if they were confident they were going to win. But they know that they're in trouble. And I think that tomorrow could be a very interesting day in the history of our city's politics.
The direction of eThekwini was pretty much a given after the ANC and the IFP announced that they would be voting together in pockets in different municipalities. What is the current relationship and the status quo at the moment, specifically in your municipality regarding or between the ANC and the IFP?
Look, I can't speak on behalf of the IFP, but it does seem as though that arrangement has fallen away and that the IFP no longer intend to vote with the ANC.
Do you think that you are the woman that will wear the mayoral chain?
I think it's likely. I think it's not a foregone conclusion. It is a hung council, and there are a number of different ways that election could go. But I think that if all opposition parties vote together, it is an election that the opposition can win. And so I think we have to wait and see. It's not a foregone conclusion, but it is probable. And tomorrow, I think, could be a very interesting day. The reality is that the majority of people in the city did not vote for the ANC. They voted for the opposition. And it's up to us as the opposition to try and make this work as best as possible in accordance with the democratic outcomes. And it's certainly not going to be an easy journey or a simple one, but it is what people voted for. And it's up to us to try and make a go of it as best as we can.
I mean, if we look at eThekwini, the ANC 96 seats, the DA 59, the EFF 24, and the IFP sitting at 16. When you say that they voted for the opposition, are you talking about the opposition as a collective?
Yes, so there's also, I think there are quite a few smaller parties that were elected because of the way the election went. So I think that there are another 26 seats that are held by other opposition parties. So there are a number of opposition players that are contesting or that have representation in council. So it's us, the EFF have a big vote share, the IFP have a reasonably big vote share, and then there's a grouping of smaller parties who also have quite a big vote share.
I mean, that includes Action SA with 4, the Active Citizens Coalition with 2, Abantu Batu Progress also with 2. Talk to me about the coalition patterns that has played out in the province with these elections.
Look, I think that we aren't in coalition with anyone at this stage. What we have said is that we will work with other people to express the will of the majority, and that is effectively what we're going to do. I work in eThekwini. That's what I'm focusing on at the moment. I think that there's been interesting things happening all over the country, and I think it speaks to the changing nature of our politics, that people are reclaiming their power. They're not happy with the current state of play, and that they want something different. I think that it's going to be a very interesting 5 years because, governing where you don't have a clear majority or governing in with a multi-party government is certainly a complicated thing to do. And the reality is that the ANC is the biggest party in eThekwini that doesn't have a majority by a long shot. So I think it's going to be a very interesting election tomorrow, and indeed a very interesting 5 years in eThekwini, in KZN, and across the country. But I think these are unique challenges for our democracy. How do we put what the people want first and make it work despite the many differences and the many challenges that exist? And that is what my immediate focus will be if I'm elected tomorrow, is to say there's lots of things that can divide us. What is it that unites us, and how do we make sure that we make that our immediate focus and center that, as opposed to the politics or the complications that might be at play?
The optics of what is happening now and how the voting is leaning. The main mission of the coalition parties, or the smaller parties, is to ensure that the African National Congress doesn't stay in power in the places where it was in power, and where it wants to get into power, that it does not get into power. That seems to be the chief objective and the reason why the minority parties or the smaller parties are banding together. Does the DA see itself as part of that grouping of the smaller parties, in the sense that you yourselves also did not get that majority vote? Do you see yourselves as part of the parties that are banding together to make sure that the ANC doesn't actually take office?
Look, that's very much what our voters want. Our voters want a change in government. So it's not just about keeping the ANC out, but about getting something better in. So absolutely, I speak for where I work. I speak for eThekwini. Absolutely, we see ourselves as people who need to build a better government in this country. And I think, like I said just now, the challenges here are that, these are going to be very complex governments if they are to succeed. And I think eThekwini is going to be the most complex case in the whole country. That council's already elected an ANC speaker. So it's certainly not going to be a DA government, in as much as it's going to be a broad coalition government or broad multi-party government. I mustn't say coalition because there is no coalition arrangement at this stage. It's just people saying, we need to get this done, we're going to work together. So definitely we see ourselves, our voters, the people who voted for the DA, don't want the ANC in government, and they want a better government to prevail. That's why people voted for the Democratic Alliance, and that's what we have to deliver on.
And I think it's quite key to note, as we said, that it's not only the DA, but the EFF and the IFP, in the sense that collectively you are able to get the majority, but no one individual party on their own is able to do that. Come Thursday, what is it that needs to happen to ensure that the voting actually does get underway? How confident can you be that there won't be similar interruptions experienced yesterday?
So I've written to the Speaker and made it clear that there are certain things that need to take place, and that we expect answers in writing from the Speaker and the City Manager to clarify what they will do to prevent similar disruptions. We've got a legal team on standby. We're not going to allow buggering around to continue forever, and we will await an answer by 5 o'clock today. And if not, we will approach our legal teams for some kind of, legal response to say to the city, you're obliged to continue with this meeting. You're obliged to create safe and amenable conditions for these elections to take place. And if you can't do that, then COGTA or somebody else must step in and make sure it happens. So we've written to the city, we've put our position on paper, we've been engaging with our legal teams about the way forward. And I think that there is, it's going to be chaotic. I don't suppose the ANC and eThekwini are going to go down without a fight. Anyone who knows the city's politics will know that it's a very notorious place for the way things are done here. But at the end of the day, there's a majority in council who want to proceed in a certain fashion, and the ANC is not going to be able to disrupt that for the rest of their lives. The outcome will be the outcome.
Nicole Graham, we thank you so much for your time today, as well as the update on developments in eThekwini. The voting there scheduled to take place tomorrow. Will it happen without the disruption? We shall indeed wait and see. Nicole Graham is the DA eThekwini mayoral candidate.